Hello, my name is Ali and I go to Rich Hill Methodist. This week Nick has asked me to do our story, his story. And at first I was like, what on earth am I going to talk about? So I started to think about it. And for all of you that know me, I have a close connection with Fields of Life and the work they do in East Africa. I have a particular passion for the work in Uganda. I have had the privilege of being out many times now, and I have even helped lead a few teams. I can assure you, God has worked in many different ways. If you ever get the opportunity to be part of a mission trip, be it with Fields of Life or another organisation, I could not recommend it enough. Now, I know it's not for everyone, but I can speak from my own experience, and it's on a trip like this that God can really open your eyes. When you think, God, it's okay, I have this, He just reminds you that He is with you every step of the way. But here's a few personal examples of God being with me. July 2009, the church youth end of year barbecue, and this year it was at Castlewell Forest Park. We were split into teams for a few games before the food, and on the last game, each team had a different coloured tail. The other team had to get our tail, and we had to get theirs. We were told the starting point and the finishing point, and a few rules. Then we were let loose into the forest. And of course, I managed to fall down a set of steps beside the castle and hurt my leg quite badly, which ended up in me having to go to A&E on the way home to get this checked out. But after the barbecue, of course. Thankfully, no breakages, just hurt and badly bruised. Now the problem was I was going to Uganda in 5 days' time with a team from the church. And of course, me being me had to go. For anyone who was on that trip will probably remember I shouldn't really have been there. With all the travelling and the flight, etc., the healing slowed down a little, and I ended up having to spend most of the first week around the compound where we were staying. But thankfully, God was in control, and I was able to join the team for the rest of that trip. Another one, July 2010, back in Uganda again. I was a member of a small team of 9 from the church, and the idea of this team was to work with a school and find out what the needs really were so that we could bring a bigger team the following year. We had an amazing 2 weeks where we were. It was a place called Rakai, and it was down in the south of Uganda. And God was really at work in this place, and we seen some amazing things. But on the 10th of July, we left Rakai and travelled back to the centre of Uganda, to a place called Kampala. This was quite a journey. We arrived at Shalom, where we would spend the last few days before travelling home. Some of the team were staying another week or two in a different part of Uganda, so 3 of us got off at Shalom, and the rest continued on their journey. We got sorted out at the hotel and headed to our rooms for the night's rest. The next morning we got up and had our breakfast and were chilling around the guest house, and the gates opened and Claire Andrews just arrived with another Fields of Life team. This was on the 11th of July, and it was also the World Cup final in South Africa. Claire and Keith, a Ugandan Fields of Life worker, had organised for her team to go to a local rugby club where there was a large screen and there would be a good atmosphere to watch the match, and asked the 3 of us would we like to join them. Little did I know I was going to have the closest encounter with God like never before. We arrived at the rugby club, found seats in through the main entrance. So we were all sitting together, but Keith and his friend had arrived early and kept us better seats over at the other side of the grounds near the stage. So we moved over beside them. The atmosphere was great. The football was going well, and at half time there was even a live DJ came on stage. It was going good and the second half started, and the game then led into penalties. It was at this a large explosion went off to the right hand side of us. The screen stayed on, but the volume was lost. Everyone jumped from their seats. Then the confusion set in. Lots of people were shouting electrical fault, so people began to take their seats again. Just at this, another large explosion happened. This time a lot louder, and it was over near the entrance. At this, panic set in, and we ran for our lives towards the trampled outer barrier, through the car park, out to the main road, guided by Keith to our bus. Overwhelmed and relieved to be safe on our bus, we waited on our one remaining team member, who had been guided to safety by Keith's friend. We thanked God for his guidance over the events that night and tried to calm ourselves down. There was over 80 people lost their lives that night in that rugby club. And as I was thinking about this, I was reminded of Deuteronomy 31 verse 8. Do not be afraid or discouraged, for the Lord will personally go ahead of you. He will be with you. He would never fail you or abandon you. And this was so true. But just another one. Finally, Friday, the 23rd of December, 2016. This was at home this time. Got up as normal and headed to work to what I thought was going to be a great get today over me, and that was me off to the new year for the Christmas holidays. Little did I know things were about to change, and the day was rolling on nicely, about 1 hour to closing time, and I was called up to the boss's office to be told, thanks for your service, but I am sorry there was nothing to come back to in the new year after the Christmas holidays. So at this, I get into my car and I started to head home. What was I going to do? How was I going to pay my mortgage? All these thoughts were going through my head the whole way home. And I just prayed, Lord, what am I to do? I need your help again. That night was Carol's at the castle in Rich Hill, and I had arranged to meet Mum and Dad up there. The whole time I was there, it felt like forever, even though it was probably only half an hour. As I was thinking about how I was going to tell my mum and dad and I had no job to go back to in the new year, and to make things worse, my nanny and her friend were coming back to mum and dad's house after the carols, and I didn't want to say anything in front of them, but I wanted to tell my mum and dad first. Anyway, we got home. I managed to tell mum and dad, and I remember mum saying, what are you going to do? And I didn't have a clue. But I didn't want them to worry any more than they had to. So I said, look, I'm not going to worry about it until the new year. I was going to enjoy my Christmas holidays. And then again, God always knows the bigger picture. A day or two later, it was Christmas morning, and I was doing sound for the service. John was on visuals, so I arrived to the church a little early to check mics and set up the stage. And John was the first person I told outside my family. And before I left the Christmas morning service, God had provided. And little did I know, but the first two people that I had told about me losing my job provided me with full-time work for the next year. And it's with God's guidance and their help and encouragement that I am where I am today. So, as I finished can I just remind you all not to worry about it? Take it to God in prayer. Even when you feel lost and like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, God is always with you and He will never leave you or forsake you. Thank you for joining me this morning and enjoy the rest of your week. Thanks.